My name's Cody Thomas, and I'm running for Congress. To be more specific, I'm running for Congress in Pennsylvania District 13 as an independent. There's three major points that represent my platform more than anything, and that's retaking our representation, weeding out the greed, and true transparency. Let's start with retaking our representation. 435. That's the number of representatives that we're supposed to have in our country. But honestly, it might as well be 20, 10, or even 2, because that's kind of the world we're living in now. There's no difference between most of the Republicans or most of the Democrats because they don't represent their districts anymore. They represent their parties and they represent their donors. And our representative, for those of you who aren't familiar, John Joyce, is exactly the same as that. In fact, he's probably one of the worst at that. He vomits out talking points at the same time that the rest of his party does, and he falls in line when it comes to voting for anything. I've never seen John fight back against his party even once. And even the times that he's maybe mentioned something, he gets real quiet real fast after his party takes a stance. Now, him being a Republican, do you think that all 218 Republican voted districts right now all are exactly the same and should be represented exactly the same? It doesn't make sense. These parties dumb down these issues into checkbox politics. None of these issues are black and white, but they want to pretend like they are so they can pick a side and then make you fight over it so they can have the finger pointed away from them. If there's one thing I can guarantee everyone watching this, it is that we will disagree with something politically. But that's not a bad thing. And I don't think there are two people that totally agree on everything politically unless you're just not having deep enough conversations. So why do we think that an entire party can represent us and our representatives can just clock out and be bots and just hit the red button or hit the blue button? Because if we can replace your voting privileges with one of my nieces and nephews and just tell them, oh, hit this button when we go to vote, just press this right here, just press this, you're not doing your job. And specifically with John, and I'm sure there's other representatives like this as well, but he's real comfortable sitting there with that 70% Republican registration rate, and he knows he's going to win. So he just coasts. He doesn't have to fight for extra things because he knows if he does, his party's going to try to primary him and get him out so that they can get someone else in that will just do what they want. And because of this, these parties, they lose touch with what their actual constituents want. And I think it's embarrassing that a lot of these issues that have come up, especially recently, like we'll use affordability as an example. Like the Republicans just wanted to deny it for a long time that it was even a problem until recently, and now they're all on board with it. And then you have Democrats like Gavin Newsom, who it took a streamer named Atrioc to railroad him during his podcast to finally get in his head that people actually care about this. This isn't something that just popped up overnight. Maybe to some people it seems that way, but it's been a lack of legislation over the last 40 years, and not just a lack of legislation. We've put forth legislation that's been in direct cause of this, and in the meantime, they've left us in this Weekend at Bernie's version of capitalism that the politicians and mega corporations are all like, yeah, capitalism's fine. Look, yeah, you say, look over there. Hey, capitalism. See, look, he's totally okay. He's better than he's ever been. Better than he's ever been. Some of the people voting in this election are people that were born in 2008 during the housing crisis. Do you think that they have ever experienced any level of normal capitalism? And the answer is no. No, they haven't. They didn't get to experience the single income household where the spouse can stay at home with the two kids. That version of capitalism is a fairy tale to these people. I say that being a capitalist myself, I've always been very pro-capitalism, but the only way capitalism works is if it's competition in favor of the consumer. And it has not been that way for a very long time, and we've slowly begin to degrade to where we are now. And it's going to continue in this same trajectory if we don't change things. I don't want to give anyone the wrong impression. I'm not one of those people that are just running on affordability, because I think anyone that is looking at this in a very short-sighted way. Does it need fixed? Absolutely. We need to address the underlying issues that cause these problems in the first place. Otherwise, no matter how many band-aids we use to make this better, it's just going to come back. The reason things are the way they are is because of the negligence of our lawmakers, because we can't continue to have representatives that can't see past their next election cycle. This causes the government to be reactive instead of proactive, and we need a proactive government because America doesn't live election cycle to election cycle. We need lawmakers who can plan for our future and for those who come after. And by not doing that, we end up in the mess that we're in right now. And I can't even blame the American people for this, because how are you supposed to vote someone in that's going to do the job if nobody runs except for two people that are going to prioritize their party over the people's needs and continue to run up the national debt like they're trying to set a high score and continue to squander the economic greatness we once had? I'm tired of playing this game where the only winners are the politicians, the mega corporations, and the billionaires. Speaking of the big three, it's time to get into a topic that's the most near and dear to my heart: weeding out the greed. Greed isn't a new concept in Congress. We're all familiar with Nancy Pelosi's trade history, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Rick Scott's $26 million of undisclosed trades. I'm sure a lot of you have the same question that I do, and why was this ever legal in the first place? This is the most conflict of interest thing that I can possibly think of. We've allowed these public servants to insider trade and gain generational wealth, and in doing so, they've continually screwed over the American people in the process. And because of all this, we now have number 2 and number 3, the mega corporations and the billionaires, which now has come full circle, and they now own the politicians because they spend all of this money on their campaigns. And that's the other thing that feels like such a common sense thing to get rid of, is why do we allow these businesses and billionaires to just donate so much money to these elections? They conveniently avoid most of their taxes, and they take all this money and line the pockets of our politicians. And because of that, they end up getting represented more than you and I do. Sounds like a whole lot of representation with no taxation to me. And then you still get to take advantage of the benefits that we provide with our tax dollars. Meanwhile, representatives continue to cut your taxes. It sounds a whole lot like the welfare queens that people tend to complain about. Just saying. Money and power are the two things that corrupt more than anything in this world. So why are we even giving our elected officials a chance to be tempted by money? I'm going to be making a lot of content about this subject over the next several months, so I'm going to try to keep this short so this video isn't an hour long. But everything I've talked about up until this point regarding not being represented all leads back to greed. And America's been in this greed meta for far too long. It's time for a patch. The last thing I want to talk about is true transparency. And what I mean by that is a lot of other politicians recently have run on the fact that they want to be more transparent. They think there should be more transparency to the people, which I totally agree with. But I feel like if anything, we've just gotten the opposite. We get less information than we ever have, and we're just kind of told how we should feel about certain things, or the data is twisted and we only get part of the data to push one of the party's narratives. But how I think it should be, and how I would plan to run it, is like anytime I plan on either writing legislation or voting on something, I want to be there. I want to have a video of a breakdown of, okay, this is the bill that I'm reviewing. This is how I think it would impact the people of District 13, and this is why I'm voting the way I am. The main reason I want to do this is because I think people need that unbiased, plain this is what it is data versus any sort of twisting and telling you how you should feel. I want you to be able to come to your representative who should be representing you properly and should want you to be able to make your own decisions so that you can decide how you want to be represented. And without that, you just have people that are going to tell you how you should feel versus this is what it is. You decide what you think. And I think that's what a representative should be, especially, like I said, this day and age where it's so much easier to do that, that I feel like that is a responsibility that the representative should have. And that also holds me accountable so that you can see exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And you don't have to speculate. You don't have to go to some other outlet. You can come directly to me. And I think that's something that's not done now. I think it's something that isn't really that hard to do. I don't think it's that much extra effort on their part. But I think a lot of them would be afraid to do that because then they would have to explain why they're voting the way they are. And they can't just say, "Oh, well, I'm just voting with the party." Like I want to tell you why I think it would benefit the area. So I know in this video I've talked about quite a few things. Some things you probably agree with, some things you may not. And for those of you who are skeptical, good. I hope you are. I didn't expect to earn anyone's trust in this first video. And honestly, more than anything, whether I win or lose, that's what I want. I want people to question who's running for political office and not just vote party lines. But over the next 10 months, I hope you continue watching my content and come see me at the live events I plan on having because I want to earn your respect and your trust and hopefully your vote. And if there was anything that I said today that resonated with you even a little bit, I encourage you to share my content, encourage other people to watch my content, come to my events because I'm not a rich guy and I don't plan on taking any super PAC money or any PAC money in general. I don't believe in that, and I want to win without doing that, even though it is the standard, unfortunately. But if I'm going to make change, I want to run things the way that they should be instead of the way that they are. So thank you again for watching. I appreciate you taking the time, and I hope you see you in the next one.